How do you know if someone's pushing from their knees or pushing from their hips? Why does it even matter to know the difference between the two? Well, let's chat about it, okay? Let's chat about it in leg springs. It's where I like to teach this proper initiation, okay? So arms go back. And the more advanced you are, the straighter your arms are, and then the lower down they go, because it implies that you can keep your chest open. Now, sorry, there's something in my eye. Now, I'm not very warm right now, so I'm not gonna go to that advanced place. I'm gonna go hands above my face, elbows in an easy bend, but it is a push into the poles to connect upper back and ribs. And the first thing I want to see is actual muscles in your arms. This is just as much an arm workout as it is a leg workout, okay? So now, what do we always say? We say, go ahead and straighten out your legs, press into the springs. Here's what most people do when they're first starting Pilates. They're gonna push with their knees, drop. Sometimes you'll even see that boing of the spring right there, right? You saw that? Right? And then when you bend in, they let the spring come in and then it rocks their pelvis somewhere. And then they go back out, they push with their knees, and you saw my low back, and then there's this collapse. I'm trying really hard to actually do this incorrectly. It's really hard to be wrong sometimes, right? So if the knees take the initiation, then my hip extensors don't have to be recruited as much, because my quads will start to take it and then the weight will drop into the back of my knees. I have nothing on in my glutes and hamstrings here. And it may look to some of you like I'm engaging my abs because it looks hollowed out. If you were to come by me now, however, though, you could smack me all over the place. Also, if you asked me to lift my hips from here, there'd be no way for me to get to flying because all my weight is stuck right here. Where should the weight be? Well, every shape, every exercise has at least one anchor. Right now, there's two. Pelvis, and the work of the arms is anchoring my upper back all the way to the base of my ribs. So now, being true to these two anchors, instead of using my knees, which the first thing you'll see move on your client will be the knees. If you notice, I'm not even moving my actual hips. I'm just sending out my knees, right? But if I push from my hips first, you see me have to organize my back to hold this neutral. And as my hips keep engaging to go through my knees and reach to my feet, well, now I got something going on. And as I pull back in, I don't let the spring shove into my lumbar and push my low back down. My lumbar's not getting to the mat. Why? Because of all this real estate down here, right? And when it engages, lumbar neutral is off the mat for me. Bend in. Yeah, my knees bend, but see, my hips are still standing. If my hips weren't standing, if my glute hamstring wasn't engaged, then the weight of this spring would jam. Here, I'm going to let it go and you're going to see it. It will jam my femurs up towards my hip flexors, quads, up into, and now all of a sudden, here comes the mom pooch, where my abdominal work is forcing down and out to try and hold on to the spring. Whew. It's a lot of work to be incorrect because it's not efficient. Now, anchor into the pelvis. Anchor into the ribs, not push with my knees. Hips through knees to feet because your feet stand on the ground. And bend in, I'm still standing. It's like doing a squat. That's what frog is. And it doesn't go super wide because people love that. Into center, it can be inside your shoulders. From the hips, reach. Here, I can lift. But here, where the spring is jamming, Oh, I can't go anywhere. Whoo, that is so hard. And bend in. I'm going to take it into circles because that's going to be one of the more basic things you're going to do. Sorry, my upper back is like, hello. So with the Cadillac, I love doing this because you have the frame of the poles. Press apart. That should be abductors, outer hips. Now, I see people initiate all the time from their ankles. I see people want to initiate from their knees again. Or they just want to let the springs yank them apart. Press the room apart, down into the hamstrings, into the inner thighs. Yeah, hip flexors. But guess what? The springs will flex your hips no matter what. Relax across the front of the hip flexors, letting the hip crease fold and roll, instead of letting the hip flexors grab, and then you'll probably displace weight into your lumbar. I'm going to push back in to get to my anchors. Outer hips. That works circles and navigates down to the back of the legs. Into the inner thighs, into center to adduct. Hip flexors relax. I'm not going to say they release because that's a lie, but they do relax just enough to feel the rest of the team. Down in the reverse, hammy glutes, really opening up the front of the hip. Press apart, lift. Woo, again, relax the front of the hips, and you'll feel how your abs have to hold you together. And down, press. Ha. And as a teacher, you're making sure there's no hula. I love to watch this from this angle as a teacher. Legs lift up and no. Keep that pelvis anchored. Up you go. And center. Now, if I do this from my knees, what you'll see is when people go to press down, there's this hanging. I don't even want to call it locking the knee because your knee does lock. It hangs. Now as I lower down, I will not have this strength of my extensors, and I'm going to have to leverage with my back. And it is not going to feel good. All right? And then I come together, and as my legs come up, it's going to pick up my tailbone. Not in a way that's taking me to lifted hips, to a rollover, but in a way that's shortening me, right? And then what do we say? And then if you try to cue someone to pull down, they're so short. There's like, I'm trying to suck it down as much as I can. There's nowhere for it to go because right? So anchor. And instead of knees pushing into the spring, hips find feet and hips pull the spring. One of the cues I love to give people, if you've got it right, you don't actually need your hands, by the way, is that it feels like you're pulling the spring under you, and it has to stay underneath of you. If you try to use your knees to do that, it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. You won't get that underneath feeling. The spring feels like it's staying on top of you. It's a tough thing to teach yourself how to do. It's a tough thing to teach other people how to do. It's a tough thing to see other people do. So that's why I like to touch people's hamstrings. Don't be scared. Touch your own hamstrings if you need to. If they're not on, then you're not doing it.